Greetings. My name is Junior Jordan. I'm a driver trainer, has been in the business from the 1970s. And I have a couple of concerns that I'd like to discuss with everybody who will pay attention because it's for the safety of all that we are dealing with. First off, I'd like to suggest that in terms of our Road Traffic Act, which right now allows anyone who's been driving, who's held a license for 3 years, to be able to go and train persons to the stage of getting the license. I think that the time has come where we need to change the act to strengthen it, just like the overseas jurisdictions. What I'm suggesting here is that there are training programs. For England, for sure, has a program called the ADI, the Approved Driving Instructors Program, which is essentially a 4-part program. It has to do with a theory test, a practical test, and a 2-part teaching assignment, simply meaning that an instructor will be assessed on giving information to novices, and that same instructor will be assessed giving information to advanced students. And this will be a step towards bringing people to the kind of standard that I think is necessary in this country to bring everybody to a certain level. I also want to add that as it currently stands, there are a number of instructors in this country, I think there are over 100 to be, if I'm counting correctly, that those persons, some of them have been trained, but I want to suggest there's a phrase known as the grandfather clause, where people who've been in the business, and they want to suggest from as long as maybe 10, 15, or even 20 years, that they be brought into the program as approved instructors. But, and this is a very big but, anybody from here on who has the propensity or wishes to teach anybody to drive should be mandated to go through that kind of training program. Because based on what I have seen and have assessed over the years, there are a number of people who have started to train their families and friends and are obviously not training them in the correct manner. I've seen people driving with AC on. The law recommends and demands that you use hand signals. How can you be training someone, be using the AC? How will they be using hand signals? Indeed, I want to stress further, to do the practical test at the licensing authority, the first thing that the testing officers ask for is to show all hand signals, and there are 7. And I wish to suggest that if you miss any or you show them incorrectly, that constitutes a reason for failure. But back to the point of really a high standard. In this country, we tend to import things that are not good for our standard. And in terms of the driving standard here, I wish to suggest that in England, they have a kind of standard. They review their British Highway Code, I think, every 2 or 3 years. I think our Barbados Highway Code, perhaps it is time for a review and an update. But that document itself has quite a set of valuable information, including between 8 and 10 pages in the Barbados Highway Code that have got multiple international signs on them. And I further recommend that anybody, particularly the young people who are thinking in terms of getting to learning to drive, 2 things. Get the Barbados Highway Code and study it cover to cover. More importantly, before you go to do the written test, make sure that you understand the contents of that same highway code. Because previously in Barbados, the written test used to be done after the issuance of the first permit. Now, and for a number of years, you have to pass the written test in order to pay for the actual permit, the document, which is valid for 6 months. So I think that to raise the standard, not only in Barbados, but in the Caribbean, if we can get some of these things implemented, it will go a long way in lifting the standard of driving overall in this country. The age in this country to get a first permit is 16 years old, not 14 or 15 as in some overseas jurisdictions. Some of them allow that. But I want to suggest that when the youngsters have passed the test on light goods or car, some of them think of graduating into the heavy duty section. No, this is where extra training is necessary. The age right now, they've been talking about taking the age up. What I want to suggest in even stronger terms, like the overseas jurisdictions, any person desirous of getting a heavy-duty vehicle should go through certain extra training before they get that license. Indeed, in Barbados, as it currently stands, somebody can get a license driving a heavy-duty vehicle on a short-base truck. But then that license allows them, listen carefully, to go and drive an air-braked 18-wheel tractor-trailer unit, which is different overseas, because in order for somebody to drive a tractor-trailer unit, especially air-brake assisted, the person has to go to specialist training. And this is the kind of activity that I think will take Barbados to the next level in terms of a standard. In other words, perhaps the time has come to look at the whole idea of heavy-duty training, heavy-duty issuance of licenses, to include the use of air brakes, tractor-trailer unit, wheels, fifth wheel, and all that. Because the higher the standard of training, the better a driver you will produce at the end. Indeed, with the heavy-duty vehicles, loading and driving is also of paramount importance, because there is a speed limit differential for heavy-duty vehicles in this country, which is the limit is 50 kilometers. And if that vehicle is towing another unit, it is further reduced to 30 kilometers. But alas, there's some people who drive those vehicles rather over the speed limit, and in some cases create difficulties for others. Of course, if the conditions don't warrant, perhaps if outside is wet, you need to reduce your speed, because you can go into something called jackknifing and sliding and that kind of thing, which you don't want. Which brings me to the other point of what people sometimes ignore, which is called the centrifugal, or yes, centrifugal, it's called centrifugal. What the centrifugal force is on a vehicle. Let's say, for example, you're going to make a right turn, but the natural forces push you to the left and vice versa. Now, if the centrifugal force is more than the down force, which we call gravity, chances are your vehicle will slide. In other words, the down force must be equal to or more than the centrifugal or side force, which is in effect the reason for a vehicle sliding. And of course, if you add the condition of wetness, the water acts as a lubricant between the tires and the road, which lends to easier slippage. That is why all training manuals, all training classes everywhere will tell you, not only if you're driving a car, but if you're driving a bus, a PSV, an SUV, once the rain has begun to fall, and the most dangerous time is at the light sprinkles. And then you have the extreme case where you have pools or settlements of water. And I want to say this because there are a number of people who think that the vehicles they drive are hovercrafts. And you know what a hovercraft is. I say no vehicle is a hovercraft. Buses, 18-wheelers, small units. If a ship, a luxury liner that is over 200,000 tons can float, what is an 18-ton vehicle that cannot float? What really happens is this. When the water gets underneath the vehicle, it subtracts the traction from the tire and the street, and the vehicle floats. And if it's a really, really flooded area, the driver has no control over the vehicle whatsoever. So I've said this several times, no driver in this country, or indeed any country, should think that his vehicle is a hovercraft. It is not designed like that. We need to have full control over those vehicles.
The Barbados Police Service is a dynamic organization which caters to the needs of all residents by providing excellent customer service within our communities. We are excited to inform you that we are recruiting new members to our ranks and welcome your participation.
We are building the Barbados Police Service within our communities. Are you smart, skillful, motivated, ambitious, reliable, and talented?
Smart to fulfill your life's dream.
Smart to chart career opportunities.
Smart to make a difference.
Smart to pursue economic sustainability.
Smart to enable change.
Smart to provide public service.
I say to you today, if you have a love for people. If you enjoy nurturing your communities and taking care of persons, then definitely the Barbados Police Service, of which I am a proud member, is the place for you. So I encourage you, lend us a hand, join us now to help keep Barbados safe.
Come join us, join me in making our country a safer Barbados.
Your place is here in the Barbados Police Service.
Come, join our ranks and chart a career of economic sustainability. Make that difference as an agent of change while providing public service as you fulfill your life's dream.
Barbadians, we invite you to get involved and play your part as we clean and green Barbados. Come into your community with media launches, bulk waste collection exercises, community engagement sessions, and giveaways. Get on board. Let's keep Barbados clean and green.
Beautiful, beautiful Barbados.
Over the years, and including recently, there have been outcries from the general public of the way public service vehicle drivers operate on our streets. I want to say this, that every driver driving a PSV, it doesn't matter if it's a taxi, a transport board bus, a minibus, a ZR, a ZM, the driver is singularly the most important controller of that unit, and hence he will be held and must be held responsible for all actions. Let me further suggest that the drivers, I know for a fact, some drivers start to drive as early as 4:30 and 5 o'clock on mornings. And some of them drive right through the entire day and even into the night. I want to suggest strongly, just like the overseas jurisdictions, it is about time as well, where the laws in Barbados are changed to include compulsory rests for all drivers. And to tell me that a driver rests under a tree for 2 minutes, that does not cut it. In the overseas jurisdictions, it is mandated. In fact, the tachographs on those vehicles, those coaches, are stopped and checked by the police, the patrol. And if it recognizes that the driver has not done his mandatory rest stop, there is a challenge for him. But I think that the commuters themselves must help in this area. And I want to say this in even stronger terms. All commuters that get on any kind of PSV, you must demand that the drivers drive recognizing that you, the passengers, are the single most important element they will ever drive. Your life is more valuable than gold, uranium, but whatever. There's no cost to a human life. And then when you have a situation where some drivers drive through red lights apparently deliberately, I want to suggest that the passengers and the commuters show their disapproval by not getting on those vehicles where the drivers have the propensity to drive through red lights and what we call drag and so on. But I think that to help monitor those PSV drivers, particularly the ones that run the routes, I want to suggest that monitors or people be placed on every single route in this island to monitor the movement of those vehicles. It may seem like a tough ask, but I think that overall safety of the commuters is paramount, so that you can do it in shifts. Perhaps some monitors can start working from 5, maybe down to 1, another set come from 1, down to maybe 6 or 7, and another set going to the night. The thing is, we cannot continue in this country for commuters crying out and for unfortunate collisions between PSVs and other vehicles when we know that training will help and the overall attitude of the driver is singularly, as I said, most important in combating this problem. But the thing is, we need to understand that if the laws currently are not there, I also want to further suggest that legislatively the use of cameras be used to deal with these infractions. In England alone, I know for a fact there are over 5,000 cameras. You heard that number? 5,000 cameras. And if you go to a red light in London, in a few days' time, your ticket comes to your house. If our legislation as it currently stands and the regulations do not reflect that, it is about time that it does. And this would go a long way, a significant way, in aiding the problems of the police officers who have to be scurried around going behind traffic offenders. In terms of traffic offenses, there are some drivers who most unfortunately have racked up a lot of offenses, have gone through the court. I think that our system needs a full implementation of the demerit point system with the possibility of full suspension and even full revocation, with due process, of course. But the thing is, we need that for people to understand that being able to drive is a privilege, not a right. And any driver, particularly drivers that drive other human beings, they must understand that. But I think that people who perennially rack up convictions, at some point, the law must look to revoking them and taking them out of the system completely. Because they put other people's lives at risk when they do that. And most importantly, we have a situation in some cases where some PSVs do not finish the whole route. We've heard complaints with that, where people turn around before they get to the end of the route, put people off in the wrong place and that kind of thing. The law is there that any PSV driver should be taken, must take all commuters to the end of their route, to the end. And if that does not happen, they really should be giving back the commuters their money, their fare. It does not happen very easily, but I know for a fact that the Transport Authority recognizes these challenges. When I was on the board, I was on a section of the board that dealt with complaints, and I can say this boldly. We were able to have hearings where some commuters, because they made complaints officially to the Transport Authority, and hearings were held, the drivers and the operators were forced to give the commuters back their money. Yes, that happened. It did happen. And I want to say that commuters must know their rights, but they must aid and abet the drivers in doing the right thing. Let me put it another way. Every single commuter in this country who catches any kind of transport board bus, a ZR or a minibus, you want to get the standard for yourself to be in a position to go to all bus stops, all. And you are encouraging the drivers to come and stop only at the designated stops. And I want to put the onus back on the drivers. If every driver, all, bar none, stops only at bus stops, every commuter will be forced to go to the bus stops or the designated areas. I want to further add, no person who leaves the Caribbean and go to New York or England or any place else will be able to get onto the transit or any bus other than at the designated stops. The drivers just will not stop. So that's the kind of standard that we need in this country, this level we get to. But it has to start at the beginning. And once people recognize that it is a standard that we're aiming for, it's not about penalizing anybody, it's about getting the standard. We have in this country approximately 125 to 130,000 vehicles out of a population just under 290,000. And over 100,000 people with the privilege to drive IE license. You can work the ratios up, but that's a lot for a small, small country. And in the world context, Barbados as a densely populated vehicle country, I think we are right up in 5 or 6 or 7. We are very densely populated for our small country vehicularly. So we need to understand that more vehicles does not and should not ever translate to mean more collision. What should translate to mean that more vehicles mean that we should be more cognizant of the fact that safety we must up the ante, so to speak, when it comes to safety. In terms of day driving versus night driving, there's a correlation. And I want to say that by saying this. We've had perennial complaints where people are talking about the bright lights. And they're the wrong kind of lights for ours. And we have shades shares that we can use, we can buy from the overseas jurisdictions to help combat with that. But in terms of driving, we're coming up soon to the Christmas season. We've passed Independence, and I've heard of complaints. In fact, I have seen more than once where people were driving and wobbling around the road, which seems to suggest that they were either under the influence of drink and or drugs or a combination. I want to say that it is about time that Barbados goes the road of introducing the breathalyzer testing. We really want to be able to save people from themselves. And I know that people are talking about they know statistics and they know numbers. You don't have to wait until numbers. Other jurisdictions have the information. They have done the research and the surveys. And I think that we in this part of the Caribbean, Barbados included, we should really get every single facet of it right. And we know that with breathalyzer, it is one way of reducing the possibility of people driving and weaving and wobbling around at night especially. And obviously, when people drink, some people don't realize that it increases the risk of a collision 4 times as easy. 4 times. It's just like driving and talking to a cell phone. The risk is there. So I want people to understand, this is about raising the standard for this country. And we're going on to the end of 2022 and into 2023. It's about time we get more action rather than talk. And I want to say, we can do it. Yes, we can.